Welcome back to another episode of the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy Mike C-Roc. Today, I have a special guest. I've never brought her on before. Some of you have seen her before, C-Roc. She's the top real estate agent in my eyes in the world, and definitely the best in our local market here in Ocean City, Maryland. But with that being said, I want to first thank all of you for joining the What Are You Made Of movement, following the podcast, watching the clips, subscribing to the podcast and the YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do this because I want to help people. I want to make a difference in the world, and just thankful to have you part of that. So with that being said, today, the reason I have Jen-roc on here today is because she is an integral part of my success. She's lifted me up when I'm down, been there for me throughout the last almost 20 years of our relationship. And I just wanted to bring her on to have some input on this topic today, which is relationships and how to really use setbacks and letdowns and bad times, use them and convert them into rocket fuel for your future and actually excel in your relationships. You see, relationships are supposed to get better day by day, week after week, year after year. Not start great and then go downhill from there. They should be a situation where it starts great and then it gets greater and greater and greater. And most relationships don't. So I wanted to talk about this topic, and I'm actually going to use this topic in my book that's come out, Rocket Fuel, because I believe relationships, not just at home, but at work, friends, in the community, are so important. And I don't think that we put enough emphasis on developing relationships, building relationships, and how to recover from setbacks or letdowns in relationships, and how to convert those things into rocket fuel for your future. Because you want a relationship that you like, that you love someone, you want it to continue. You want it to be indestructible. Maybe I'm just speaking for you, but everybody that I know would want a relationship that they like being in to grow and get better. Healthy relationships improve over time. Unhealthy ones start great and go downhill. And the thing is, you want to be intentional with your relationships. You want to be in, just not meet someone and say, hey, I like this person, I admire this person, and now I want to just be in this relationship. You have to be actually intentional with wanting that relationship to get better. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Being intentional with your relationships, always working to improve them. And also, when you're in a relationship, it's a two-way street, not a one-way street. A relationship is not to serve one person, it's to serve each other. And when two people get together and are really trying to work together to serve each other for a great purpose, and they support each other's goals and dreams and really are interested in the other person's goals and dreams, that's a great place to start in building a relationship. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. As I come to you on this podcast today and preach to you, it's more about preaching to myself, to keep reiterating things to myself, to make sure that I can be the best husband I can be, the best father, the best partner, employer, employee, the best podcast host. That's what I want to be. I want to be the best. So I got to keep repeating these things in my head and to myself, and that's what the purpose of this is. And if anybody else benefits, great. That's icing on the cake. So with that being said, I want to introduce Jen. She's my wife. We've been married 17 years now, been together almost 19, something like that, right? And so the mic here, this is her first podcast, or maybe second, not with me. This is her first with me. So I got to break her in. So be easy on her with any of the comments and reviews of this episode of the What Are You Made Of show. But welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what are your thoughts on marriage, being married to me over the years? And be honest, you can be transparent with people. But your thoughts on how to develop and stay in a great relationship and keep improving.
I think a lot of times when you hear about people that are on the verge of separation or divorce or no longer together, the complaints that you hear are, we grew apart. And the fact of the matter is, people are going to grow. They're going to change. That's going to happen no matter what. It should happen. I mean, if you're not growing, you're dying. So it's important to understand that when people are growing and they're changing, they have to share parts of their lives with each other. I mean, Mike has his work, I have my work, we have our family together. But if we don't share every single day the little intricate parts of our lives, then yeah, people will grow apart. I mean, that's an important thing to understand, that when you grow, you have to grow together. And part of growing together is having, common goals. You hear about people talking about how they feel like their partner, their significant other is just somebody like a roommate that just lives with them. They have their life. You have your own, you may sleep in the same bed together, but your world's apart. And that's because communication is such a big thing. Mike's very busy with his work. I'm very busy with my work and the kids and our family. But we still take time to talk throughout the day. He'll give me little compliments and things like that make me feel good. So even though we can't spend a lot of time together, the time that we have is good quality time.
And let me stop you there, not to cut
Sure.
you off, but a couple things. I do focus on complimenting her a lot, and even it's when I'm not in the best of moods. That's the time that's most important to compliment or do something nice for the other person, because it's easy to do it when you want to. It's easy to, well, I always want to, but when you're feeling good and you're in a good mood. But she's mentioned something about roommate situation. And guys, here's the thing, like we've been married almost 17 years. It's not always rosy. There's times where we felt like that. Jen communicates it with me so that I can correct the path. So, I might be knee deep, chin deep in some things at work, some drama, some growth in our company, change in our company, whatever the case is. And I might lose focus sometimes. I might not be paying enough attention to the home. And so if I was perfect, I wouldn't need help. If I was perfect, I wouldn't need a God, a higher being to help me. I wouldn't need a mentor. I wouldn't need teammates. And I wouldn't need a partner. So the thing is that nobody's talking about ever being perfect, that you need to be perfect, but you always should be striving for better. And communication, as she mentioned, is so important, because if you're not communicating, you can't share information or data about feelings, about things that are going on. You need to be able to share things. Communication is not just words either. It's touch, right? It's attitude, nonverbal communication, and so communication has been a big part of what we've done. And when we've struggled in our relationship, I believe it had a lot to do with lack of communication or not good communication. So I wanted to talk to you about that, and or cut you off there for just to point out that before you went on, because I didn't want to forget that point.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of times that people, you get into a relationship, and in the beginning, everything just feels perfect. Like, this is the perfect person for me. We get along, like everything is perfect. And then down the line, you realize that the other person's not perfect, and you're holding them at a standard that is sometimes unreasonable. I can't expect him to be perfect and be pointing the finger at him and what he's doing and what he's not doing, when I'm not looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you know what, if I don't like this about you, then what is it about me that I can change that maybe could help the situation, or make me feel a different way about the situation. It's a lot of pressure to be in a relationship sometimes, especially when kids and other factors get involved, because you're talking about focus and what you focus on. And we understand, with our jobs and that type of pressures that we have at work, that sometimes it's hard to turn that off and to focus on work all of the time. Sometimes that is called for. And that's when you have to be understanding. You have to be, what I mean? Like, you have to be kind about it. You have to be considerate to the other person, like that they're going through something in their life that maybe you don't understand or that you're not a part of. And instead of, playing the blame game, saying like, you should be doing this better, this should be what your focus is, just having that compassion for that person and that understanding for what they're going through.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Like, how many of you out there that are listening to this, how many of you allow people at your work, whether it's coworkers or customers or referral partners and real estate agents, for example, or anybody else that you work with and connect with at work, how many of you let that conflict that happens at work sometimes, or the stress, you bring it home and then you let them into your house, not physically, but you let them in your house, and then it affects your kids, your spouse, and you bring that stuff into home, and it basically lowers your tone in your home. And think about those kind of things. And when that happens, the point of this is to understand we all go through it. But the point is, the sooner you can recognize that it's happening, the sooner you can have a trigger in your brain, it stops it. And then you get back on track, because that's what the key is. My point and purpose is to help people. If I go through something works for me, I want to share it with other people. I say that all the time. I want to share it and make sure that you understand that it's not you by yourself. You're not isolated going through it. Everybody deals with it. Hey, let's get together and share ideas of how we can fix these things, how we can make things better for each other, how we can make our lives better and our relationships better. And that's what I like to focus on with these things. But talk about compliment your partner. Talk about showing appreciation for your partner. How important that is. How important it is to, what can I do to make my partner feel good today? What can I do to be a hero to my partner? In the morning when you wake up, what is it going to be today that I can add value to my relationship, to build my relationship, to make it better? Ladies, tell your husband how handsome and strong he is. Even if you don't feel like saying it right now, rub him on his back or shoulders, give him feel his muscles, and let him know that you appreciate him, and you appreciate him being there to support your family and help support your family and being part of that family, and how strong and safe you feel around him. Even if you don't, if you have a man that's got little arms, it's okay. Maybe he's got a gun, but tell him how safe you feel with his gun instead of his guns. But that makes a big difference. And men, tell your women how beautiful they are. Even if they first wake up and you don't think that they're that beautiful at that moment. I don't ever do that. That's not what I do. She always looks beautiful. I think she looks beautiful when she first wakes up. But anytime you just see an opportunity to lift your partner up, do it. Take advantage of that. And it's being genuine because you care. You're trying to invest in the relationship. You're trying to build your partner up, and that's so important. And also celebrating wins with each other. Tell the other person how proud you are of them for accomplishing something. When Jen has a real estate transaction she's worked hard on, it goes to closing. Hey, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of your success. I know the hard work that you're putting in. I see it. And keeping up the family as well. All the stuff that you do, like you gotta really embellish in that, right? I mean, and does that make you feel good when I do that?
Absolutely. I think as human beings, we're selfish people. So it's easy for us to be stuck within ourselves and only think about our own feelings, only think about what I had to deal with through the day, what I do around the house, what I do at work, what I do with the kids. It's easy for me to put the focus on myself and be selfish and consider, only the things that I go through and not consider what you go through, and celebrate your wins with you and be there for when, times are tough, and it's important to be there for the other person. I mean, the thing is that in a relationship, people say, well, everything's 50-50. Well, it's not 50-50. It's 100-100. If I'm taking care of his needs and what he needs from me as his wife, as his partner, as his best friend, and he's doing the same for me, and we're both being taken care of 100%, it'll help us to not only feel like our needs are being met as human beings, but then that spiritual connection, that intimacy that so many couples don't have, is because they're not taking care of each other. They're only considering themselves in every situation.
Yeah, and I talk about this a lot too, with being individual focused versus omni focused. Individual focused, you're worried about yourself, what's going on in your little world or your big world, whatever you want to call it, everything that you're dealing with throughout the day, your stresses, your wins, everything, your thoughts, your wants, your needs. Instead of looking at it from above, down on a playing field, looking down omni focused, what I'm talking about with that, and looking at both sides, understanding what both sides' needs are, what both sides' moves are going to be. And that's a difference. And I think that once you become omni focused and you see the big picture, you understand more, and it's not all about you. It's not all about what you need and get and want. It's about the other person. And I'll tell you what happens, guys. One thing I've noticed is when I start focusing on my wife's needs Instead of mine get not just met, but they get exceedingly met, and it makes a world of difference. And when I start being individually focused again, because keep in mind, I'm telling you this stuff and I'm not saying I do it all the time. I'm always striving to do it. This is the thing that these nuggets that I bring you is things that are things that I'm working on to better myself, better my relationship and my surroundings. And so what I notice when I'm individually focused, it seems to stem conflict in our relationship. And so omnifocused, I keep saying omnipresent. Omnifocused view will help you, and it'll help you be more focused on the other person and then get what you need in abundance. And so that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in regards to omni-focus. I'm glad you brought that up. So here's the other thing. I always like to talk about this too. Like when you start feeling a certain feeling about your spouse, and then they're not as nice or loving to you, or, if they're doing something that's really getting to you or annoying you, what's the best way to handle that? I have some of my thoughts, but I'll let you speak on that first.
What was the question?
When you are starting to feel like your spouse is not being as nice or loving, or they're doing something that's really getting under your skin, is it more my problem or is it more your problem? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of times, and I preach this to our teenage son all the time, a lot of times when you feel a certain way, I can't control the way that you act, the way you behave. I mean, you can't control the other person. I've tried, but you can't.
How'd that work for you?
It didn't work too well. It didn't. But I feel like I can control the way I react to it. It's not how, it's not how things happen or what happens in life. It's how you react to it. And we always use the story, about the egg and the potato. You're boiling both. The egg hardens from the boiling water. The potato softens. So it just depends on, it's not necessarily your surroundings. It's how you react to the surroundings. So I know a lot of times if you're doing something that's annoying me, then first I need to separate myself. That's the first thing that I do. Like, I walk away and, just.
And I chase her and smack her
time.
butt. I chase her and smack her butt, and she tries to lock the door, and I'll go in there anyway. And but anyway, go ahead.
So sometimes people just need time. They just need separation, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like one of these people that are like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? Why are you doing that? And sometimes people just need their space, their moment. And at that point, like you give them their time, but you can always go back and look at it again when you both are feeling in a different headspace. You're both calmer. Emotions, especially, I'm not trying to blame Italians or heritage or anything like that, but I know I can be hot-headed. Like I can go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat, like completely calm to completely irrational.
Why does that have to be Italians? Like I know Irish people that are like that. I know Mexicans that are like that.
Yeah, I know
Puerto Ricans that are like that.
So maybe it's not just Italians or redheads or whatever, but I mean, I know for me that's how it can be, and sometimes I just need time, away. But if it's a reoccurring issue and it's something that's not just the once in a, you're in a bad mood, that type of thing, and it's something that we need to discuss because it keeps happening or it really bothered me and I felt a certain way, keeping it buried deep down is not good either. But you need to make sure that you approach it, that you're not complaining, that you're not blaming. You need to bring it up to your significant other and have good communication again.
Key.
That I felt this way.
The C word.
The C word, right. I felt this way and I want you to know how I felt, because men and women are completely different creatures. I can't expect him to understand how I feel, to know how I think, because he doesn't feel and think the way that I do. And
she doesn't know that. And
to expect you to be able to know what's going through my head, like, oh, well, if he loves me, he should just know. He should just know. And that's not fair. You can't.
Well, here's the thing. So really what it comes down to is you can't control the other person. You can't fix the other person. However, you can influence them.
Right.
And influencing starts with yourself. So this is what I found that works for me. When I start to feel that way, she's being bitchy, she's being naggy, she's just not being there, giving the attention, or she's annoying me, or whatever the case is. I look at myself first. I'll take some time, like she said, to separate myself, but I'll look at myself and say, how have I been this week? Have I been focused on the family? Have I been doing things to help out? Have I been responding in a bad way? How's my attitude? I go through a checklist, because once I find I do that, 99% of the time I find that it's me that has caused it, 100% responsibility, figuring out what I can do differently to fix the issue. And when I've done this, I always realize it's me. It fixes the situation most of the time. And so you'll see a difference in your spouse when you do this. And if you don't do it this way and you go at your husband or spouse when you're annoyed, or if you're feeling that they're not being as loving or supportive or whatever the case is, and you don't do the self-check first, the battle begins. And that's where relationships fail. That's where they have problems. So a couple things. Richie Dolan reminded me of this the other day. He said, high tolerance equals low performance. Low tolerance equals high performance. So in a relationship, you could take that phrase, that saying, or formula, whatever you want to call it, and then say, you know what? If I tolerate that in my relationship, we're going to have a low performing relationship. It's not going to be good. And that's the end of it. It'd be hard and cut and dry. And that's something that I deal with a lot with myself. But that's where the C word comes in again. Communication. Okay, how can I set this up in our relationship where I'm not going to tolerate certain behavior? She's not going to tolerate certain behavior, or actions, or things not being done. Not going to tolerate it, but I'm not going to say that at first like that. I'm going to check myself first, because I want to see what I'm tolerating in myself first. And then I'm going to approach the topic with my spouse, my partner, about, hey, listen, this is something that's bothering me. Is this a good time for us to talk about this, or do you want to be in a better mood? And then once you have some time set aside where you guys can focus on that conversation, then you go into something that, it's really bothering you, and you really don't want to, maybe don't use the word tolerate. Maybe use a different word. I'm not a wordsmith, but maybe we can go to Richie and ask him for a better word. But you want to have that conversation, say, I'm being bothered by this. How can we fix this? Is it something I can do myself? And ask first about yourself, because you don't want to tolerate things in your relationship that go on and on and on if it can be corrected by communication, because then your relationship's going to suffer. And so that's something I wanted to throw in there from this week's learning from my friend Richie Dolan. So anyway, any more thoughts on that part?
No, I mean, I think that's, I understand what you're saying, that some things in a relationship are not going to be acceptable. I mean, you've always, when we get into a fight at night and we're going to sleep, you're always like, I don't want to go to bed angry.
We fight differently than most couples. We get naked and fight. That's how our fights go. I say, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to get involved with this conversation unless we take our clothes off.
That's not true. Not true at all.
Are you calling me a liar?
That's a lie.
So, but the thing about this is, if you go at your husband or wife, once the battle begins, there's no winners. There's no winners. There's only losers. And especially if you have children, think about the effect on your kids. I tell the story all the time. I came up from a broken home. I don't remember my parents together, but I do remember fights. I do remember conflict amongst my step-parents and my parents. And as a kid, how that impacts you and affects you, it has a huge impact. I mean, how you're going to deal with relationships as you get older. Like, I fought a lot as a kid. I got into fights a lot, and I always thought it wasn't me that was starting the fight. I just thought it was somebody else. And looking back, I may have been maybe the culprit of it, but I knew I didn't take shit from anyone. Like, if I got into a situation and somebody was where I thought was on the wrong track and they didn't want to listen to me, man, I was fighting. And, that's not the way to be. And I can't believe we just did this whole thing without this microphone. We're doing it through the computer, so I don't know how the sound is probably not going to sound very good. But we're going to get what we can out of it, and I'm going to switch it now anyway, so we can. Casting game. So anyway, I apologize for the audio if it's not as good as it could have been, but the content's the important part. And by the way, we're getting ready to move this whole thing into an official What Are You Made Of C-Roc podcast studio that we're going to be completing probably within the next couple weeks, would you say? Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a different background. It's going to be cool, different. I like this one, don't get me wrong, but we're in the middle of our dining room, actually. This whole thing started in my dining room, which, talk about relationships, is not always the best thing. But I believe in making people uncomfortable because I think that they grow and stretch. When they're stretched, they grow and become listen, when a caterpillar goes in a cocoon and starts to grow wings, it gets really tight in there, and it starts to get tighter and tighter, and it's pressure like this. And then all of a sudden it busts out as a beautiful butterfly. So that's why I did this in the dining room, to make her feel uncomfortable. And anything to say on that?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that.
So I don't think she feels the same way. She's going to come out of this stronger, though. I can tell you that. When you come home from work, guys, wives, anybody, when you're coming home from work and the house looks like a hurricane hit, the first thing you need to just think is, okay, this is not the right time to express disappointment in the way the house looks. The first thing I do, instead of nagging or berating, I start by doing anything I've caused to the problem. I start by trying to clean that up and pick that up. From there, I'll pick up after the kids and the wife. Yes, I pick up after my wife. She won't ever admit it. I point it out sometimes, but I start doing that first, because if I look at it this way, like if she's had a rough day, she's busy, she's taking care of other things, her focus was on something else, I want to show that I have her back. So if I walk in the bathroom, and guys, don't tell me you don't have this, guys and gals, where you go into the bathroom and you have clothes that are in the bathroom, dirty clothes that were taken off for a shower and they didn't get picked up right away. If I go in there and see that, sometimes it's my clothes, sometimes it's hers, I'll go and grab it and take it to the laundry room. If there's time to do laundry, I'll throw it in there. But I take the effort to do that instead of getting frustrated if it's more her clothes than mine, because I don't know what she had going on in that moment. So these are some things that went through my head. And, I think that when you do that, instead of approaching the other person and talking to the other person about it, you just handle it. First, it takes a lot less energy. It takes a lot less emotion out of your day and away from your energy and efforts to go towards your goals. Because I think that when you get upset and agitated and irritated, it takes you off your game. And why would you want to do that to yourself? So that's the way I look at it in my head. And what are your thoughts on that? By the way, before you talk about this, guys, if you do what I'm telling you right now, dishes, laundry, do it in your boxers, you get more action. So once I found that out, man, laundry, dishes, I'm doing it all. I'm trying to get one of them guy G-strings too. That's my next step, to do it in the laundry and dishes with my G-string on. So, but no, anyway, I like to lighten it up a little bit, but go ahead. Because relationship talk sometimes gets a little bit anyway, Go ahead.
Oh, I think that's important too, because especially with both of our jobs, like, the type of industries and stuff that we're in, we have times where we're more busier than other times. And, we don't feel like the responsibilities around the house are either my job or your job. I do dishes, you take out trash. The trash needs to be taken out, I take it out. The dishes need to be done and I'm busy, you do the dishes. It's important that even though we have roles, and roles are very important. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to talk about being a feminist or, that kind of thing, but
why not talk about how you feel? Listen, I'm not in the game of telling,
I'm not exactly old school. I mean, like, I believe that, women can do a lot of things that men can do. Men can do a lot of things that women do. But there has to be a role, because there has to be, if you do run your family almost like a business, there has to be somebody who makes the ultimate decision. And then he's got to have his people, that help make those decisions. So we make big decisions together. But I understand that his role is the head of our family. And that way, when we do disagree about something and we're kind of butting heads a little bit, like, I have to understand that his responsibility is to take care of our family. He's the one that is going to be held accountable to do that. And I have to support him, even sometimes when I don't agree with some of the decisions that he's making.
When she's wrong. Right? No, I'm just kidding. And by the way, if there's wives out there that are the ones that make those decisions and they have that role, there's no equal role in regards to making final decisions on things.
Right.
Because think about it. A final decision is one person saying yes or no to something, and it goes forward. Mm-hmm. So if you have a situation where, you don't have that, two people are trying to figure it out, then what happens if both people are disagreeing? One says yes, one says no. What happens? right? It's going to still be no, or it's going to be yes, one way or the other. Let's say somebody says, man, look, when we don't agree, we just don't do it. Well, somebody decided that they don't do it. So the person that says no is the one that has that role. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, all right. So then the other thing is, I think, and there's two things I want to finish on. One is understanding that you need to pray, meditate, whatever you believe in. We believe in praying. But I believe that you need to pray together, not solely by yourself. There's times for that. You need to do that as well. But I think it's important that you get together as partners and also with your kids and pray together or meditate together or whatever you believe in. Get your goals together, get what you want, your gratitude, what you're thankful for, and express that to a higher power or whatever you believe in. I'm just sharing with you what we do. But again, I'm just sharing with what works. If you don't want to do it, that's up to you. But yeah, I mean, that's a big deal for me. I mean, your thoughts on that part, and then I'll get into the rocket fuel part.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously very important. I mean, we, run our family. We are, Christians. We believe in God. We believe in that higher power. We believe in a moral way of living your life. It's very important to mimic your lives the way that in our beliefs, the way that God had designed it to be. So I think that kind of is clear cut for us, and to be able to follow that's very beneficial for us in our family.
Now, when on this part, with Jen being here, because I want to talk more about work and things relationship wise, but rocket fuel, talking about setbacks and rocket fuel. So all the stuff that we've been talking about, you're going to, like in a relationship, you're going to have struggles with all these topics we just talked about. You're going to have things that are very easily overcome. And then you're going to have things that can be huge setbacks. And the question you have to ask yourself, are you going to quit when it gets really bad? Or are you going to turn the setbacks into lessons and fuel, what I call rocket fuel, into your future for your relationship? Because at the end of the day, I started off talking about this, you want indestructible relationship. If you're in a relationship that you love the person, you like the person, whatever the situation is, what kind of relationship it is, you want it to be indestructible, I would hope. So how do you do that? Well, indestructible, I always talk about going into orbit, away from gravitational pull. Like the Earth, gravitational pull to me reminds me of, I'm on cloud nine, somebody's trying to pull me down, or a topic or an issue is trying to pull me down. I want to get away from that gravity. So with that being said, how can I do that? Well, the only fuel that I know of that gets you into orbit is rocket fuel. Now, you rocket scientists out there, I'm sure that you know some other fuel that you may tell me that can get you in orbit. Great. Well, whatever it is, turn these things, all these lessons you learned, all the setbacks in your relationship into rocket fuel for your future, and watch your relationship flourish. It's a proven system. It works. And now I can speak, being married over 15 years now, I can speak as an expert, because I think that when you talk to people in any industry or any topic that have 15 years of experience, they have to be experts if they've had success. And so I think we both have that hat that we can wear as experts, relationship experts. But talk about setbacks in the rocket fuel. I mean, we've had our ups and downs. We've never held grudges for long periods of time. But I mean, there's been times where she gets on my nerves sometimes. I'm sure I get on her nerves sometimes. She gets so pissed at me. Me probably more than others, or her being mad at me more than others, me being her probably. But I don't know. But we've always built upon it and never gave up on each other, and always looked to try to fix it or better it. Right.
Right. Well, I think that every single day it's a decision. You know what I mean? Like anything else in life, you put your feet on the floor when you get out of bed in the morning, and you decide how that day is going to go from the moment you wake up. And it's the same thing with a marriage. You have to choose to love that person every single day. If you choose not to love that person, then that's going to be reflected in everything that you do towards that person in your own personal life. So I think it's very important that, people consider love to be an emotion, when really love is not an emotion, it's an action. So you can't say that you love someone and you feel a certain way if you're not doing anything throughout your day, choices that you make to show that person that you love them. And that changes, you know, from, you know, the first date to, you know, the first year of marriage to, you know, 15 plus years of marriage. That's going to look different. And you have to do what works best for you in your relationship, because every relationship is going to be different.
Isn't she beautiful though? Like, look at her face. I mean, 15 years, she's like more, I thought she was pretty when I first met her, but man, but she is, Jen actually is like the most beautiful person on the inside as well. Like, it's not just outward appearance. She has her moments, but for the most part, no, she's absolutely a beautiful person. I'm so blessed and thankful to have you in my life. I'm just, you know, honored that I can be her husband. Here's some mushy stuff for you guys.
You're trying to get lucky.
But no, I mean, I don't have to try for that, really. But no, I mean, I'm just like looking at, you know, my past 20 some years, and to have fallen into the situation that I'm in, man, I'm a lucky guy. So, but rocket fuel, guys, rocket fuel is what you want to look for. You want to look for things that can put you into orbit to make you indestructible. That's what I focus on all the time. Now, off of marriage for a second, we're talking about work now, going into the work world, customer world, what have you. I have grown a company with 3 of my best friends and my little brother at Nations Lending. We've built it under a certain culture, which you've heard me talk about before if you listen to this show at all. And we really focused on culture first. And culture is all about relationships. It's all about communication. And so one of the things that, you know, when we're talking about rocket fuel and relationships, imagine 3 best friends and you get into a situation where you're at any different time, people may or may not be pulling their weight. They may or not be focused on what needs to be focused on. All of us, I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm pointing like, what you know, how do you address that in a relationship when you feel like that person is not on the same playing field, or not playing field, but let's say my partners think that, you know, they're doing more work or pulling more weight, or I feel that way, or they're not focused on a certain topic or understanding of certain stuff. How do you approach that in a relationship, right? Well, I think first of all, you go back to the high tolerance, low performance, low tolerance, high performance. A lot of people in relationships are scared to communicate when they feel there's a conflict in a working relationship. They run from it or shy from it. They'll complain about it, but they won't do anything about it. They don't know how to approach it until it blows up. And, you know, that's the worst thing that you can do when you're trying to scale a business, trying to develop or build relationships. Communication, the C word I keep going back to, is utmost important. And it's not just communicating, it's with the right person, and it's what the right type of communication. So I always like to start off a conversation with someone, explaining to them where I'm coming from and what I want at the end of the day. If you go to someone and point a finger at them for not doing something or not having the right focus or not pulling their weight first, and that's what you say, instead of understanding and making sure they understand where they're going and making sure you guys are in alignment with your goals of where you want to go, then you're going to have problems and the relationship will sputter and it will not go to where it needs to go. So that's what I always look at is, okay, let me make sure we're clear on our goals, alignment with our goals, and we're clear on where I want to go. And then from there, say, this is what I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong. What can I do to help you? And approach it that way rather than, hey, you're not doing this. I need you to do this, and you're not doing it, and you're not doing this. So how can I help you? And so that's the way I would want to be approached. If I'm not pulling my weight in a certain situation, which I'm sure there's times in my past that I don't pull my weight, that I feel like I do and I want to all the time. But if somebody came to me and said, hey, C-Roc, listen, we're on the same page here. We're going to the same place, right? Making sure I'm clear. They're clear on it. How can I help you with this certain situation? I don't feel that you're as focused as you need to be over this last few days. Is there something I'm not doing right that I can help you with? And approach it that way, where everybody has the responsibility of getting the job done and the responsibility of getting the team to a certain destination. Responsibility on yourself. So it's very easy to blame other people, but no success ever comes from when you blame people. Anybody that ever falls into the trap of not taking responsibility and blaming others will see their success falter. Their graphs will go down, their mood, their tone will go down, and it's not a good place to be because you lose control, right? So what are your thoughts on that from seeing those things and dealing with it in your
Well, I mean, I think people do confuse the two C's, communication and complaining. I think, well, I need to let him know how I feel, but then how you come across it is you're complaining about everything that he does. And it's the same thing with business or business partners. If all you're doing is pointing, the finger and finding the faults and complaining and approaching it in that way, then nothing's ever going to get resolved. Communication is definitely different. There are right and wrong way to communicate with anybody. So I think that's, if you have an issue if you always get a negative response every time you bring something up to somebody, then maybe you're not communicating it in the way that you should. And maybe that's something that you should work on, is how you communicate it so that it's not, considered a complaint, but more something that you want to work on together to reach a common goal.
The trap that I fall into a lot of times is when I feel like there's a whole bunch of things going on and I want to complete, this is the way I operate. I want to complete things in as quick amount of time as possible. I'm trying to jam things in all the time because at 43, I feel like I'm on a mission now. I don't have as much time as I did when I'm 23, and I don't know how much time I have. So I need to get things done. And instead of taking the time to think about what I'm going to say or what I'm going to communicate, sometimes I'm just like, hey, I want this done. Let's get it done. Whatever it is, let's get it done. If there's a problem. Okay, what do we got to do to fix it? And, a lot of times you need to think about what you're doing and think about how you're going to communicate and think about being in the shoes of that other person and understanding that what role could you have in that? Now, look, recently I have some employees recently that the communication is just not good. And I'm looking at myself. At first I'm like, gosh, this person's so difficult. Everybody's different. There's going to be difficult people. There's going to be, and it depends on the time. But the thing about it is I always think to myself, okay, what am I doing wrong here? How can I approach this differently? Is there something that I can do to fix this? Now, sometimes it just can't be fixed because sometimes people are just incompatible because it takes two people to make it work. It doesn't just take one. But there's times where I go through this, and as you get bigger in a company too, and more people, you're going to have more personalities, more conflicts, more emotions. And so what I really try to focus on is understanding these things. And when I have an issue with someone, I remember that my saying and my dominant rule of turning setbacks into rocket fuel. How can I turn this rough communication patch, this conversation we just had, this conflict how can I turn that into fuel and boost our relationship? Doesn't always work because, again, it takes two. But that's what I'm thinking. And I want to share that with you because these are some of the thoughts that go through my head. And as I go to where I'm going, guys, I want to be able to look back at these podcasts and say, hey, what was C-Roc thinking at this moment? Okay, he was thinking of this. Did that end up working out for him or did it falter? And the documenting this thing in this podcast is a great thing to be able to do. So any closing remarks, Jennifer, before we go here, and then I'll end the show.
Life is full of lessons. So you can either learn from them or you can be stubborn and continue to have hardships and conflict in your life because you're too busy being right and not, learning from the lessons that life's trying to teach you.
Yeah. And by the way, as you're in a conflict with something or a setback, think about this for a second. When you're in it or just after, that is the time where you feel the most hopeless. You feel the most stress. Your tone level's down, your mood's down. But the further and further away in proximity you get from that setback or letdown, the more you feel better and you realize that it wasn't really a letdown or negativity or negative thing in the long run. It's really there for you to grow. Diamonds are made from pressure. Wine is made from crushing grapes. Olive oil that I just had with my meal on sauteed spinach with my eggs. Olive oil is made from crushing olives. So when you're becoming a successful person, successful individual, business person, or whatever you do, there's got to be pressure and stress. And if there isn't, and there's no setbacks, guys, you're not trying hard enough. Your goals and visions aren't big enough because you're just laying low, being okay, mediocre, just trying to survive. Guys, doesn't it get tiring and energy, the energy that's spent just trying to survive? It just feels like crap, man. And I hope you don't want to do that. So if you want to finish that, be indestructible, have massive success, it's going to take probably less energy in the long run to do the things I'm telling you. And so when you approach setbacks, you understand now, if you get this in your mind, acknowledge it, setback. Okay, what is this for? This is, in the long run, it's for good. And then take action. Understanding, okay, what can I learn here? How can I make this to my advantage? And that changes everything. So I want to share that with you guys. And the reason I wanted to come on here and talk about relationships and bring my lovely wife is because we care about you. I'm not good enough just worried about me. I want to make an impact on hundreds of millions of people on this planet. I've been led by mentors that are doing that already. And I see possibilities that I can even go further than them because I have more time than them, hopefully, based on our age. So shout out to Grant Cardone for putting me on this mission with his 10X movement. The What Are You Made Of? C-Roc people building movement. I'm going to add people to it because I can't do it by myself. I'm going to bring people in and we're going to go and we're going to orbit. Indestructible. And I want to help you guys get there and I want to continue to do that. So that's why we do. We care about you. We want your relationships to last, work, business, at home. We want to see marriages flourish. And that's what it's all about. So until next time, first of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Go subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Also, Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco, YouTube, subscribe to that channel. And finally, I have a book called Rocket Fuel coming out winter 2020. Go there and subscribe on themikecroc.com. Check it out. Get the book. I think there's an ebook for free there. And if you want the hard copy, you can buy it. And let's get this movement going. Let's live on rocket fuel and get into orbit.